Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we are unpacking a truly fascinating and frankly chilling narrative. We're going to explore the compelling mystery of Flight AX-907. This is the story of a massive passenger airplane that vanished without leaving a single trace behind. We're going to break down exactly how this entire thing unfolded, taking you from a completely routine takeoff all the way to one of the most terrifying, unexplained disappearances in aviation lore. So get ready, because this is one of those stories that just brilliantly plays on our deepest fears of the unknown.
Okay, let's dive into this central haunting question right off the bat. Could an airplane just be erased? Now, we're not talking about a tragic crash caused by bad weather or some known mechanical failure. I want you to imagine hundreds of passengers flying peacefully through the night sky. Suddenly, with absolutely no warning, the aircraft enters a strange, pitch-black patch of clouds. It loses all contact with the outside world, and then it just vanishes. No distress calls, no wreckage, no black box, just completely wiped from reality. How do you even begin to explain an event like that?
Section 1, the final flight.
To really grasp the sheer scale of this mystery, we first need to look at how entirely normal everything was before things went wrong. 326. That is the total number of souls on board that calm autumn evening. You had 312 passengers who were probably just settling in, watching a movie, maybe drifting off to sleep, along with 14 highly dedicated crew members. The weather forecast, totally clear skies. The pilots sitting up in the cockpit were heavily experienced veterans, and the aircraft itself had passed absolutely every safety inspection with flying colors. Literally 326 people who boarded expecting a completely standard, uneventful trip. None of them could have possibly realized they were embarking on a flight that no one would ever see again.
So here is the timeline. The flight lifted off the runway incredibly smoothly at exactly 11:42 p.m. Everything was proceeding perfectly by the book. But then, right around 90 minutes into the journey, the situation dramatically shifts. The captain suddenly spots this massive black cloud directly in their flight path. But here is the truly bizarre part. The weather radar showed absolutely nothing. Satellite reports confirmed the skies were completely clear. Yet, visibly, right outside the windshield, this massive dark cloud was just growing larger and larger right in front of them. As the captain attempts to radio air traffic control to request a course change, a terrifying cascade of system failures kicks off. First, every single navigation screen flickers. Then, the autopilot inexplicably just disconnects itself. Back in the main cabin, the lights dim down to a crawl. An aggressive, loud static suddenly fills every single radio frequency. But you know what the most chilling detail is? A faint whisper begins echoing through the cockpit, and it wasn't coming through their radio headsets. It sounded as if someone or something was standing right there inside the aircraft, directly behind the pilots. At this point, the first officer is desperately trying to reach air traffic control through all that heavy static. And then, the captain shouts this terrifying final transmission. There's something inside the cloud. It's moving toward us. Wait, that's impossible. Immediately after those words, a loud, totally unnatural metallic scream pierces the transmission. You can actually hear the horrifying sounds of passengers screaming in the background. And then, complete silence. The radar signal didn't just fade out gradually, it vanished instantly. 1 second, the plane was there, and the very next, it was gone. Section 2, the search.
Now, you can imagine the frantic, real-world response to a commercial airliner just vanishing from radar in the blink of an eye. Within just hours of the disappearance, authorities launched one of the largest search operations in aviation history. We're talking military aircraft sweeping the skies, naval ships scanning thousands of square kilometers of ocean, and advanced satellites examining every possible flight route. Weeks bled right into months. But the findings? Zero debris, zero emergency beacons triggered, no luggage, no black boxes, not even a single floating piece of metal. Experts were utterly stunned. Scientifically and practically speaking, an aircraft of that massive size cannot simply vanish without leaving a trace of physical evidence, yet somehow it had.
Section 3, phantom signals and sightings. Now, the mystery only deepens from here, taking a decidedly eerie turn. Months and even years after the official search was called off, strange phenomena began to plague the exact region where Flight AX-907 disappeared. Pilots flying through that same airspace started reporting highly unusual radio interference. Some heard the missing flight's specific call sign. Others heard frightened, distant voices begging for help.
One recording actually captured something chilling. Just read this quote. "If anyone can hear us, we're still flying. We can't get out." When investigators traced the frequency of that transmission, it was an exact match to the missing airplane, an airplane that hadn't existed for months. And the audio was just the beginning. Years later, commercial pilots began reporting physical sightings of a so-called phantom plane. They described seeing this old passenger aircraft flying through thick clouds, its navigation lights glowing brightly, its engines seemingly running perfectly. But when they checked with air traffic control, nothing was on the radar. As approaching planes got closer, this mystery aircraft would just fade into the fog. But the absolute most unsettling detail comes from a pilot who claimed he got close enough to see right through the windows. He reported seeing passengers inside. He said they were perfectly still, their faces pale and expressionless, not blinking, just staring out into the dark before the plane dissolved completely into the night.
Section 4. Science versus the supernatural.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is seeing how people try to explain an event that entirely defies logic. The human mind tries to process the impossible in two very different ways, and as impartial observers, we need to look at both. On the scientific side, researchers proposed an extremely rare atmospheric event, or perhaps some unknown massive electrical disturbance that completely fried every system on board simultaneously. Some even suggested a catastrophic equipment malfunction paired with a massive navigation failure. But on the flip side, local legends began to take root. Fishermen and sailors who claimed to see strange lights and hear ghost engines in empty skies believed the area was literally a doorway to another dimension. Others whispered about a cursed sky or restless spirits trapping lost travelers in an eternal flight.
But here is the frustrating reality of this entire mystery. It's the absolute anchor of the case. Zero physical wreckage was ever found. None of the scientific theories can adequately explain how a massive plane leaves absolutely no debris. And without any physical evidence to study, well, no hypothesis, whether it's scientific or supernatural, can ever be confirmed. It leaves the mystery entirely, permanently unsolved.
Which brings us to the lingering, haunting aftermath of it all. Even today, there are pilots who actively avoid flying through that specific region after midnight. The legend says that on quiet nights, hidden deep among the clouds, you can sometimes catch the silhouette of an old passenger plane, flying without a destination. Its lights blink slowly, its engines make absolutely no sound, and just before it completely disappears into the dark, a faint voice crackles over the radio, whispering, "We're still here. Don't follow us." So, what does this all mean? Perhaps it's just a legend. Perhaps it's nothing more than the overactive imagination of tired pilots in the dead of night. Or perhaps some mysteries are truly never meant to be solved. We've laid out the timeline, the lack of evidence, and the folklore from this terrifying tale. So I leave this final question to you. What do you think really happened to Flight AX-907?